The article mainly discussed how to pick repertoire for your students, and it opens with how sometimes teachers stick to what they know and they reuse repertoire every couple of years. Um, and this does work, but sometimes my high school orchestra teacher definitely did this a lot. But sometimes maybe students are in more than one ensemble. Like if they want to be more challenged, they're placed in an upper level ensemble early, and then once they get older in that same ensemble, then they might already have played the repertoire um, that is being recycled. Um, so just making sure that you're not using the same repertoire for the same students and making sure that there's some sort of diversity. It also talked about a couple different perspectives to look at when choosing repertoire. The first one they talked about is the technical perspective. Um, this perspective takes into consideration um, having students develop different skills and knowledge through the repertoire. So maybe there's a piece where you're teaching students how to shift for the first time. So trying to find repertoire that's challenging but not too challenging. So finding the zone of proximal development, where like assimilating new skills is in like it's attainable, and it's not too difficult. Another perspective is the aesthetic and affective perspective. This to me kind of sounded mostly like picking music that the students will like enjoy playing. So maybe something familiar like a Disney song, or like Tchaikovsky or something super popular. And the goal with that is to make students like lifelong enjoyers of music and enjoy playing in the ensemble, which I think is a good thing, but in moderation, because you don't want every song to be like a Disney film, because the students are really being exposed to different types of music. It's kind of just what they know. Another perspective is the musicianship perspective. So, having a high quality performance in a broad sense. And this one kind of sounded familiar to me when I was in high school, and I think middle school sometimes as well, but more so in the upper level. My director would choose pieces that were kind of out of our like attainability, or like out of like the range of it being playable just a little bit. Like we played Elgar Serenade for strings, and like Adagio for strings. So it was definitely challenging music, but he knew that we were able to play it. And like I remember like we played at NISMA majors, and like I remember listening back, and it definitely like in the broad sense it sounded good for like a high school ensemble, because I listened to it recently and I was kind of shocked at how good it was. So I think that perspective is really valuable, because sometimes I feel like directors choose music that is too easy for their students so they can sound perfect. But when you give students challenging music, you're kind of, it's like you respect them in a way and believe that they can do it and play it well, even if maybe it's not always in tune, but the musicianship is kind of there still. This perspective also kind of talked about being authentic when performing in different styles. So like if you play Bach, maybe tuning down your strings so it's kind of more like accurate to the time period. Another perspective was the critical perspective, and this perspective talked about broadening selections. of what music is as a whole. So not always picking like traditional Western orchestral pieces and kind of diverging from like normalcy, I guess. And making sure like if you're going to pick like some like a piece that's not like Western, then making sure that it's not just like an addition to the program to make it diverse. Maybe have a whole program that is from like a different part of the world to celebrate that instead of picking one piece to like make it seem like you're trying to be diverse, if that makes sense. And then the last perspective that the article talked about was improvising. So maybe having like an improv concert with your students, or maybe doing like an after school club that's just improv and then putting on an improv concert. I think would be really cool to do with students. But yeah, and that would also like give you more time in rehearsal to not do improv if we're doing it like out of class and it's like an extracurricular thing. So yeah.